just ask if there's rum in this, and no, it's bourbon. Good evening and welcome to the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild August meeting. Can everyone hear me okay? Good? Okay. I'm Craig Arnold. I'm the president of the Guild, and we've got lots of other officers in here. So, but we're going to welcome visitors and brand new members. If you're a new member or visitor, would you stand up, please? I want to see you. Thank you. Glad you're here. And now you're going to lead us in some woodworking tasks. No. All righty. Let's see. I don't have. Where are we here? Still on the front page. Let's see. Calvin, do you have anything to report? We got a microphone. Got a microphone for you there. Yellow. You need a blue one? Try the blue one.
That was a lot of trouble for nothing big. I was just, maybe we'll talk about it later, but Skill Builder coming up on Labor Day weekend. I'm going to demonstrate how to make a cabriole leg. That's kind of, if you've always stayed in straight, straight rectangular forms, this is a chance to get into a little curving. So it involves some shaping, some turning. So kind of a fun little project, some shaping. So if you're interested, come on out.
Very nice. Thank you.
The date of that will be?
The date on that?
Saturday.
Oh, the first Saturday in September. Yeah, so the first Saturday, what time?
There's Saturday, September 4th, 2 to 4.
So the first Saturday in September, 2 to 4. Yeah, and the shop is closed 2 to 4 on that Saturday, September 4th. I'm reading the calendar back there for the Skill Builder. All righty. Got a hum here. Let's see. Mike McCauley, you have nothing? There's nothing? Tim Locke, member at large, you have anything to report? No? Nothing to add. Gary Milkey is in Canada. He's our treasurer, so he won't have anything. Chuck Saunders, our director of assets and the shop foreman boss, he has a drill press for sale, and he has dowels. Everyone will be leaving tonight with a cup of dowels. You may not leave without your dowels. And if you try to leave, you get 2 cups. Yeah, it is a $5 donation if you do not want dowels. Ron Hall with communications. We're good, he says. Ron will remind you that we do have a Facebook page, facebook.com/KCWWG, and also a Instagram page, Kansas City Woodworkers Guild. Also, we have at KCW Guild, and also don't forget on YouTube, you'll see a lot of our meetings. In fact, tonight you're seeing this meeting. Hit the subscribe button, ring the bell, and you'll be notified of little events that occur. We also have the podcast. Kevin Thomas, you want to talk about the podcast? Okay. Shit. Oh, family affair here. Blue.
Okay. I hope everybody's seen an episode of the podcast. If you haven't, you really need to check into it. Some interesting information about your fellow members of the Guild. This last weekend, we handled Santa Claus. and Mike McCauley too. So, and
So how many have there been?
there have been 4 altogether.
And they run about 15 to 30 minutes?
15 to 30. So far, the longest one's been 33 minutes. That was Cal Hobbs. So,
He is, he's done a lot.
well, he's the only person that had anything important to say, I guess. So, and we're working on something special for October. We'll let you know more about that when it comes up.
Great. Thank you. Alrighty. Ron Hall is also our newsletter editor. If you all want to write an article for Woodworkers, Ron will gratefully accept any articles. He doesn't care of the length. He will edit it or make it 2 editions. It'll go over 2 months if need be. Mark Crawley, our website. Anything from the website? There he is, right there. Nice hat. Don Steele's our librarian. He has magazines over here. Anything else you want to add for the library? All of the magazines tonight have an article on finishing. So they're what? 5 for $1? 5 for $1, but you're willing to talk turkey. All right. Let's see, events coming up. Chris. This is Chris and Mike McCauley during their podcast. Or Kevin. Sorry. Kevin Thomas. There's Santa. Does it play? No. Land of AV. It worked earlier. It did. All right, we'll come back. Let's see. Is Jim Barrard here tonight? Haven't seen him. Membership director. He says is that 789 or 784? Okay. Let's see. Matt, come on up. Matt is our program director for events like what's going on right here. Yeah, blue mic.
Now it's on? Great. Yeah, so tonight Craig is going to be giving us a demonstration, one of my favorite subjects, on how to make wood look really, really great. A lot of us can do things with wood, put together the project, but then what? And especially if you have a piece of wood that has chatoyance, natural chatoyance, how do you bring it out? Do you just throw some shellac on there or whatever? Anyway, that's what Craig's going to do tonight. He's going to show us how to really bring out the chatoyance in a piece of wood. So,
among other things.
Among other things. And then in September, Matt Kenny, he was an editor.
He was the editor.
The editor for Fine Woodworking magazine. He's written lots of books. One of the books is, I think he did a box every week.
52 boxes.
52 boxes. He's going to be here. He's going to be given a class in September, and Norm is really great when he sets up these classes. He tries to set them up for the 3rd week, so that on the 3rd Wednesday we get one of these really great guys that give the demonstration that night. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then Chris was telling me, he sent me some information on the guy that makes banjos, and he seems to be really pretty good. I'm not too sure when we'll get him yet, but we'll have sometime down the road, maybe October. We'll see. We'll have somebody teach us how to make banjos. That's it.
Great.
And I'm always, anytime you guys have any ideas, it used to be the Kansas City Star. They had some really great articles. I got all my information from the Kansas City Star. They fired everybody, it seems like. And so it's really difficult to find, for me alone, not living in Kansas City, to find people that give talks and such like that. So I'll take all the help I can get in finding people that give talks.
Great. Thank you. All right, now Chris is ready with Santa's workshop. There's also
You've got
an
a
article in
big
the
event
newsletter.
coming up in November.
Yes. Well, my alter ego, if you haven't figured out, is St. Nicholas, Father Christmas, and here at the Guild we're going to have a holiday sale and visit with Father Christmas. The plan is when they come in the door, they'll get a block of wood. They are going to go to 6 different stations to process that wood into a small toy truck. Then they will come into the hand tool room. In the hand tool room, they'll actually get to visit with Santa. They'll get to build with Santa and with some of his elves. And the wood turners are joining us, and they're going to have small turned tops that will drill a hole in the middle of their truck. The top will go in there, so they actually get 2 gifts in one. And then as they come out of the hand tool room, our general meeting area will be set up with individual sale tables. Our members and friends will be able to sell items they have handmade. And it's going to be 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. So this is a great opportunity to come get the stuff that is special, that is handmade, and it's going to be a very special event. For those in the Kansas City area, we will be doing this. We hope to have Fox 4 on board. They're going to help us with some promotion, and we will be doing this the weekend before Thanksgiving.
They'll
The
be
20th,
right up,
I think it is.
they're right up the hills from us, so
Yes.
hopefully we can get them down here to enjoy the festivities. So I take it Santa will be making an appearance.
Santa will be here in all his glory. The beard and the hair turn white about that time, and it's a great time. I love dealing with the kids. I love the looks on their faces as I get to tell them some stories, and I get to talk to them.
And we're back. Mike did want to remind you it's 1 week before Thanksgiving, not 2 weeks, as he said there. So yeah, for the members and for all of you watching at home, all 4 of you, we will be having booths up set with some of the old members selling some of the items that they make, and some of it's just not woodworking either. Let's see, safety. Mike Jones, do you have anything to report? Anything to add? Come on up and grab the blue mic.
Aside from being safe out there, I just got contacted today by the city of Shawnee. Chris, put this on your list. We've been asked to help put toy trucks together for the Chris Kindle Market at Old Shawnee Town on December the 4th, first Saturday of the month in December. They've already got all the trucks left over from 2 years ago. There's roughly 500 trucks, close to 500 trucks left over. So we just need folks to man the booth representing the guild, helping kids put the toys together. So if you're interested, see Chris. We'll probably get a sign-up sheet going for people to man the booth. And besides that, nothing to report on the safety other than we've had some pretty safe conditions around here. So keep it up.
Alrighty. So, speaking of safety, for new members or visitors, we do have a program called Rough to Ready. It's one way that you can get your green name badge so that you have shop privileges. And it's a great way for the experienced woodworker maybe to get brushed up on some of their tool usage, or if you've never used a tool before, you'll get hands-on coaching on how to use the equipment. How many have we done so far this year, Mike? Or Mike's the coordinator for that. I mean, it's like, it's a bunch.
Yeah.
It's
Somewhere between
a lot and a buttload, okay.
we're running 6 and 8.
Yeah, very good. Sponsorship, Dwayne Miller, he's back there at the raffle table. Be sure that you buy raffle tickets. There's 10 items back there from which to choose. Very nice. He wants to remind you also to use Amazon Smile. Every time you go to smile.amazon.com, search for the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild, select that as your charity, and 0.5% of everything that you purchase comes to the guild. It doesn't raise your price at all. I think last year and a half, we've got $800 and some from Amazon, just free money for us out there shopping. So,
Most of it's from your wife and Gary.
me and my wife and Gary's wife. Is Norm Carpenter here tonight? Training director. So we've got the skill builder with Calvin Hobbs on September 4th from 2 to 4, and Matt Kinney, the box building class, the third week of August. That's all he has. Or September, I'm sorry. Third week of September. It says August. I'm just reading what they give me. If you haven't noticed, we have a new CNC machine back there. It looks like a big foosball table. Yeah, much bigger. It's about a 3x5 area, plus it has a rotary mill on it. Here's pictures of of us trying to get it unloaded. Yes, that's fat me up there on the forklift trying to get it off there. Kind of a treat. And there it is, installed in the room back there. Has an orange cabinet with all the tools. There's Roger measuring out the plywood cut for the top. That's where the monitor will be up on top of that, and all the tools for the machine will be kept in there as well. So we hope to CNC something that will hold the wrenches and the collets and put a place for bits and stuff like that in there as well. So, alrighty, so we'll talk about the special interest groups, the SIGs coming up. Anyone from the Woodcarver SIG here tonight? No? I know they just got a big bunch of stuff from Woodcraft and for the carving SIG. CNC SIG, you saw the photos for that. Let's see, the hand tool SIG, Rob Young, is there going to be an interesting topic? It was in the newsletter. All right. Basics of sharpening, there you go, thank you. Power tool restoration SIG, Chuck, anything going on there on the first? No? And John Tegler, I saw John here tonight. Come on up. The blue mic. John is the scroll saw SIG coordinator.
Yeah, John,
It should be.
is it working?
Yeah.
Okay, John Tegler, who, which?
Stand still.
That's tough to do. John Tegler is my name. I moderate the Scroll Saw Special Interest Group. For those who are not familiar, there's a sample of what a scroll saw looks like back there. And I'm going to, after about a year and a half vacation, we're going to try to start up the Special Interest Group meeting, which occurs on the second Wednesday of the month at 7 o'clock in that room right back there. And we get together, we encourage you to bring projects that you've done and talk about them, and we chat and things of that nature. And hopefully at some time in the future we may start doing some classes like introduction to scrolling or specific classes relating to the holiday seasons, Thanksgiving, Christmas, making ornaments, different things like that. So anyhow, any questions from anybody about the? Okie dokie. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Just set it there. Alrighty, our next meeting will be here September 15th. That's the third Wednesday of the month. Now we're going to go into show and tell. This has always been a real popular episode. We get a lot of people watching this. Chris breaks just the show and tell out to its own little thing for YouTube. But here comes Jim Bainey, the host of Show and Tell. So if you brought in some show and tell items, grab it and come on up. Microphone.
Okay, this working? Now is it?
And your guest will use the orange one.
Okay. So, I just came back from a funeral up in Minnesota, where I graduated from high school, and a friend of mine that graduated a year ahead of me passed away, and he married a girl in my class. My high school class was 26, so it's a pretty small community. Anyway, at the funeral, this was a good Catholic family. They had 7 kids, and all 7 kids had 7 kids. So it was a real big. The church was really crowded. So the oldest grandson stood up to give the eulogy, and he said, "I got to tell you about a story. We had a family reunion about a year ago." He said, "Grandpa took me aside. He said, 'You see all these people around here, all these aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents?' He says, 'I want you to know this all got started in the back seat of a 55 Chevy.'" The priest even laughed. So, George, come on up. Can we take those out of the package? Yes. All right. Okay. Oh, that's good.
Hey, I make puzzles on the scroll saw. Let me see. I make puzzles on the scroll saws, and then I sand them and everything and make them nice. And then somebody comes by with a little kid and they really like it. And somehow the puzzle goes with the kid, and I don't see it again. But that's okay. That's why I make them. I have not sold any puzzles yet, and I have probably made about 40 of them, of which about 15 to 20 of them I know I have given away. I've given them to people that I work with, friends, whoever has kids that want to do it. And I've even given a few to the other guild members here. And the ones I have up here is a panda bear, a shark, a grizzly bear, a kangaroo, and then a nice big cat. And the cat has nice big pieces for you engineers can put something together. They're all made out of poplar. I like that. I don't finish any of them for a couple of reasons. I figure that the wood is probably safer for the kids than paint or some type of finish. That, and then also if somebody wants to paint it, now they have a nice clean surface to paint it on. That's it.
George, are you going to have one of the booths here for
Yes.
Christmas?
Yes, I am going to have one of the booths here.
Are you going to sell them?
No, I'm going to give them
away.
Yeah.
Awesome. How many are you going to have?
Oh, let me see. Right now, I believe I have about 25 at home that are ready to go, and about another 20 that needs to get finished.
Awesome. So, is there any particular group that you give these to, like hospital kids or anything
No.
like that?
Mm-mm. Yeah, most of them I have given away to people that I work with. They have grandkids and everything, so and that's an easy way to get rid of them, so I don't have to play with them anymore. And some people ask me, well, why do you do this? Why aren't you charging on? And I keep telling them, I've already had all my fun with them. I've made them. I've put them together at least 2 or 3 times just to make sure they go together. So I don't need any more fun out of it. I don't need the money from it. And I also figure that if I start charging people for it, it's going to become like a job. I already have one of those, so I don't need a second one. That's it.
What kind of scroll saw do you have?
DeWalt. Most of the time I use the ones in here.
Awesome. So you're the reason they're wearing out.
One of them.
Okay.
But I do notice a lot of the times that there's a lot of scrollers that don't know how to clean up after themselves. If you're one of them, start learning.
Not me. Okay, any questions? Very good. Thanks, George. Awesome. I think my grandkids will have an eye on that kangaroo. Good.
Kangaroos for.
I got 4 grandsons. I have. They're not very good at it yet. Okay, thank you. Hi. Terry? Here.
I'm Terry Johnston. I've started woodworking closer to my mouth. Okay. I started woodworking a year ago, so to finish something is, and I'm a ADD and I'm a procrastinator, so to finish something is a big deal to me. But when I first started woodworking, I thought I'd glue everything together, and Ed Stewart, I don't see here, kindly came over and said, maybe we can think about some other way of putting it together. And he's right, because I dropped it and it fell apart. So now I have finished this desk, and it's from the intermediate basic woodworking class. Yeah. And it's the same pattern as everybody else's, and has a little drawer in here. I made a divider so I could put a charger back there. But what I used all of the skills Craig taught me and I bugged him about, and my prior history, and painted on top of it with some glaze. I don't think you were too thrilled with me when I talked to you about that, but it I can't tell you how much I'm thankful for all those people that have helped me learn. I come in here and they will very kindly introduce a new idea or guide my hands or tell me what tool to use, and I have learned. The class and the people here are wonderful, so just thank you very much.
Okay, some questions. How did you taper the legs?
With the tapering jig the intermediate class gave me.
Okay. And how did you fasten the apron onto the legs?
Mortise and tenon.
Mortise and tenon joint?
Yes.
Okay. And so you made this out of oak?
No, it's ash.
Ash? Okay. And how did you get the design on the top?
I looked at lots of pictures of irises and I sketched it out till it was big enough, and I put it out there, and then I used my glove fingers with the Minwax, and I built it up. First I lightly put it on there so I knew where it was, and then I started being a little more brave with my glaze and pulled out a couple brushes and put it on there. And then I'd wait for a day and I'd go back and look at it again and add more to it, and I tend to overdo things, so I had to walk away. I could tell you more things I'd like to do to it, but this is where I'm going to leave it.
Okay, so the process was that you made the outline?
Yes. I drew an iris on a piece of paper as big as I wanted it, and then up to my mouth, and then I sketched it out with pencil. And as as I was going over that area with glaze, I'd erase the pencil so I wouldn't, my proportion needed to be right. I'd erase the pencil and put the glaze on a little bit, then move to the next section, the next section, next section. And the basic shape was there. And then I used, I didn't worry about the design anymore. I just used my fingers and my brushes and maybe a toothpick or two and put the design on there.
So what's going to happen to this table?
It is going to a friend's house, and it's going to be a table by their bed where they can put their phones and their iPads in the drawer.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
So you have a finish on top of the, is this dye stain?
It is a Minwax dye. Let's see, what is a Minwax Bay Blue? Is that dye or pigment? I think it's pigment.
Minwax, I don't know.
Okay.
My daughter brought it home. I liked it. So
Okay, so then what kind of a finish did you put over it?
the armor seal.
Okay. And you brushed it on?
That one I did with a sponge brush.
Did you take Craig's
Yes, I
finishing
did,
class?
and I know I took it, but I have been bugging him every time I see him. What did I do here, and what do I do there, and tell me more about that, and go to the shop and follow him around.
I've taken it, and I've been to Woodcraft about a dozen times. What do I do here? You know?
I took
Yeah.
one of his. I made one of these square things he's going to show you, and did the with and without shellac wash, wash coat, and with and without this, and with and without that, to try to figure out what color I wanted.
Awesome. Very good. Thank you for bringing it in. And are you got plans to do some more?
Yes, but I have to finish the other projects I've started. Intermediate
What's that?
I have all the projects. The 30-inch cabinet is all but, don't have the handles on that yet. I took the cabinet making under Dave Beard to know how to do kitchen cabinets, and I have to put the doors on. I'm a procrastinator, folks. I have to put the hinges on, otherwise they're ready. We took the bottom of those and put wheels on them so I could wheel them around the workshop and put our stuff in them.
Are you putting European hinges on it?
I don't know. Yes. Tell me what I'm doing there. Tell me what I'm doing. Yes, European hinges.
Okay, they're a piece of cake.
Okay.
You get templates for those. Those are just, and they're so adjustable.
Well, they're in the doors. They're just not in the frames.
Okay,
So,
very good. Thank you.
thank you.
Looking forward to some more projects.
You've taken several classes. You'll have to repeat this, Jim. You've taken several classes. Say that classes here.
Oh my gosh, I would still be gluing things together without the classes here. Yes. I like the mortise and tendons and all the joints I know how to make, and they always try to talk about the wood, and they talk about how to finish it and how to read plans and how to buy wood and where to buy wood and what's going to be a waste of your time, and come into open shop. There's foremen all over the place trying to help you, and boy, do I grab anybody who seems to know what they're doing, and grab them and ask them questions. You know, I think I had an hour-long discussion on how to use a chisel one day. And I learned a lot.
First thing you learned, it was not a screwdriver.
It's not a screwdriver. Keep it sharp. How to sharpen it. I've learned about 4 times how to sharpen a chisel, and I'm trying to make sure I know it before I hurt that chisel. So,
Awesome. Very good. Thank you for bringing this in. Okay, who's next? There's the mic. Bob?
Hi, I'm Bob Edsel, and I did not make this. I bought this in an antique shop, maybe 6-7 years ago. It had a tag on it that said clamp, $5. So I got it.
You paid $5 for that?
how much would you have paid?
Probably 50.
Well,
If it's a clamp, you got to have it.
right, exactly. Now, I don't know if you can see, it has screw threads sticking out of the bottom so that it can screw into a surface, and then a screw to clamp with. I have used this as a nut cracker. It does crack nuts. I would like to think that it is not just a nut cracker. I want it to be something mysterious that I will be excited to hear about. So I'm figuring that somebody here knows what this is. Yeah, it's a finger crusher, I
Carver's
guess.
vise.
Carver's vise.
Yeah, you would screw your small carving onto that threaded piece and then clamp that like that, and now you can carve your piece.
Ah. I've had it upside down.
You've
all
had it
this
upside
time.
down all this time. Or you can crack nuts with it.
Well, I might have to carve something, I guess. I'll be at the carving SIG sometime soon. Okay, well, that's it. It's just a little thing.
Anybody got any more suggestions of what he could use this clamp for?
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing that in.
I'm glad I
Thanks,
did.
Craig, for telling
Thanks
us
for the tip.
that he's had it upside down all these 5 years. Wow. How much money have you lost at this game?
Playing my wife, I haven't really had to lose money. I lost money making it.
Okay.
So this started out with a Pinterest post, thanks to my wife. She has managed to progress from, could you do this, to when do you have time to do this, to this is what I want. So she handed me the picture, did a little research, found a project plan on Wood Magazine, downloaded that, and proceeded to launch into a very mind-boggling, gut-wrenching experience, veneering, and thank God for David Roth. He, if not for David, I'd still be trying to put this veneer on here. So it was a pretty challenging project, something as simple as this, that it ended up coming out pretty decent. My wife's happy, that's the bottom line.
Okay, so what'd you make it out of?
I've got cherry as the frame of the box. It's got curly maple veneer and walnut veneer on the playing surface, and also on the outer side of the box.
What did you use for a substrate for that?
1/4-inch MDF. That was one of the greater challenges I had, because you have to veneer both sides of the MDF at the same time. And then trying to get that all lined up so that it's square onto the substrate.
Why both at the same time?
Because David Roth was in a hurry.
Oh,
This was a project that was supposed to start at 9 in the morning and end by about 2, and by about 5 we called it quits. So that was probably the biggest challenge, because the veneer sheets did not line up square. So then I had to trim all of that down to square. That left me with absolutely no tenon whatsoever for my mortise, or for my dado in the box sides. So then I had to saw that, put an 1/8 inch kerf down the middle of that 1/4-inch MDF, and then glue a spline into that to have that spline to go into the dado. That proved to be a bit challenging, because if the board isn't square, the box isn't square. And the board wasn't square. Boards, 2 of them. Because I had to glue both sides in together. It was all one piece, and then I took it to the table saw, cut it apart. The shim shifted on the final cut, and the saw blade knocked into the one side of the cut. So it was just like one screw up after another after another. But one quick pass through the time saver sand, or the Grizzly, and it got it all nice and flat. Got the saw marks out of it. then trying to figure out what size magnets to put in it to hold it together.
What about the sauce hinges?
The sauce hinges were another mind-bending experience. You know, I grappled with making a jig, and then the instructions said to use just a drill bit on the drill press, so I opted to go the easy route. Bad idea. The depth gauge kept moving on my drill press. So, hole that was only supposed to be 1/4 of an inch deep ended up about 3/8, pushing on a half. It was like, there was a lot of cussing going on in the shop when I did this. So,
Did you learn any new words?
oh no, but I could
You knew 'em all?
I could string 5 or 6 expletives together in one.
Okay.
So that's
So-
something I didn't have to learn.
So
I knew that one.
why did you use pins to hold the?
Just for, it was something different. I thought it would be visually interesting. The circles kind of went with the playing pieces, so I thought I wanted to have a way to put the dividers in there without using any mechanical fasteners. And I had seen this idea before on, I think, Fine Woodworking. So I drilled at the intersections of the cross pieces and the long divider, and then put a 3/8 cherry dowel down into it to hold it all in place. And it actually worked out pretty good.
What'd you finish it with?
8 coats of shellac. I have not rubbed out the shellac yet. I aspire to have a finish on this like what Ed Stewart put on his flag cases, but I got a few more coats of shellac to go before I get to that.
Why that many?
It just ended up being that many, and I wanted to get a good thick heavy coat on it in order to, because it's a game board, so it's going to be taking some abuse. So I wanted to get a pretty good thick coat of finish on it, and then of course, like I said, I got to rub it out yet.
Okay. What are you going to rub it out with?
I'm going to French polish it.
Very good.
I've done it before, and actually, it's not that difficult to do, but there'll be some challenges because of the depth of the box and getting into the corners. So I'm sure I'll be cussing some more once I get to that stage.
Just don't go through the veneer.
Exactly.
French polishing it before you assembled it?
Absolutely. Thank you for that detail, Mr. Finisher.
Especially now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Questions?
Thanks,
One thing, Mike. During the knife fight, he told that if you make a mistake, nobody will ever know it if you don't tell them.
Craig. Exactly.
Tell them, they'll never know.
You can find them. Any experienced eye can look at this and see the mistakes in it, but I figure for the first time, and of course the veneering experience, if not for David Roth, I can't stress that enough, if not for him and his guidance, I would be floundering with it.
The vacuum press?
At David's, I actually
okay.
went to his place and used his vacuum bag, but got turned on to using Gorilla Glue for adhesive for the veneer instead of a veneered glue. There's many in here will recall my first experience with veneering on that ostensorium I did was a real mind-boggling experience. So it was actually insanely easy using Gorilla Glue. So I'm hooked on the Gorilla Glue concept.
There is a technique to doing that, though.
Yes, there is. And thankfully, we've got David Roth as one of our teachers on veneering. Ron's also a great source of information, too. So one of the greater benefits of the Guild, we've got lots of experience in this Guild. Collectively, hundreds of years of woodworking experience that you're only a phone call away from finding somebody who's more than willing to kind of take you by the hand and guide you down the right path.
Especially finishing.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Very good. Questions? Yes.
Yeah, Megan?
What game is it?
It's called backgammon.
Very good. Thanks, Mike. Is that it? I think so.
Is that it? All right. Let me jump back over here. Thank you, sir. A cheat sheet here. There you go. All righty. Guess we're up to intermission. Do what? Let's do 15 minutes so people can get their cookies and more importantly, buy your raffle tickets back there. There's 10 great items back there. Yeah, look, he wants to give me the Gitas, he says. So, all right, we're going to take a 15-minute break. Those of you at home, you're going to be seeing some videos, and we'll come back and we'll have the raffle results. See you.
Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild Woodwords podcast. I'm Kevin Thomas. I'll be your host. As you might guess, I'm a woodworker, and I've been a member of the Kansas City Woodworkers Guild for approximately 14 years. I've held several positions with the Guild, but probably my favorite one is promoting the Guild and all its varied members and resources. So that's why today we'll be starting at the top with current Guild President Craig Arnold. So Craig, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate being here.
Let's get right to the start of it. How did you get your start in woodworking?
Well, I was kind of fortunate. My grandfather was a woodworker, born in Sicily. His father before him and grandfather before him was woodworkers. In fact, the furniture factory is still in Sicily today. 3 families owned it, and my great-grandfather was tired of the mafia burning them out, so he decided he would come to America to seek his fortune. And he settled in Kansas City. My grandfather was 10. My great-grandfather called for my grandfather and uncle to come over with their mother. They settled here in Kansas City, and he worked for Koch Refrigeration Company his entire career. Would build the bar and the bar back so that Koch Refrigeration could sell refrigeration units in the bars. At home, though, Grandpa did hand tool woodworking, and he would build furniture for people that needed it. Mrs. Koch needed a table built, and so he built that for her, and they lived on Ward Parkway. And so all of her ladies would come over and see this beautiful table, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So my grandfather got an opportunity to build a lot of furniture at home. At home, it was all done with hand tools. We didn't have any power tools. So when I was 5 years old, I started working with him. My first task was learn how to sharpen chisels and plane irons, because my grandfather said nothing happens unless it's sharp. By the time I was 7, I was sharpening panel saws, files, so I knew how to keep them. By the time I went off to college, I'd worked virtually every weekend, or almost every week out of a month, and maybe a couple of nights a week when my mom wanted to get rid of me for a while. But would help Grandpa in his shop. So with no power tools, he was quite amazed when I bought my first Craftsman table saw, about 16 years old. He said, "You mean they let the public buy this stuff?" So he was just, he didn't understand how power tools like that could be used by anybody. But I learned a lot from my grandfather. When he passed away, I was at college. My aunt, mom's sister, her brilliance, took all of his wooden hand planes. He had about 200. Had full set of hollows and rounds, lots of different profile planes, and she bagged them up and threw them away, saying that nobody wants this old crap. They want this. And so the iron that she did keep, I still use to get today. I have some Bedrocks and some Stanley Baileys, and I still use them today. They've had their blades replaced, but I was quite heartbroken that she threw all those things.
That's a
But yeah, so my grandfather, every time I pick up a plane or a chisel that belonged to him, I think I hope I'm doing him justice by what I'm creating when I woodwork.
So how did you come to the woodworkers?
Well, years ago, a good friend of mine from high school and college, his father was a member of the guild, Jerry Boone. And a few of the older members that remember Jerry, he invited me to the guild, and that's when it met in the basement of the church over in Westport. I remember.
Jacob's Well.
Yeah, I remember the one of the demos. The gentleman was going to demo a technique with a router, and he turned on the vacuum cleaner to clear the dust out, and the lights kind of dimmed in the basement of the church a little bit. When he triggered that router, the lights went out in the church.
I remember that.
And it was one of the old fuse boxes where you had to unscrew the dead fuse. And so people were back there with little flashlights and lighters trying to see what they were doing, putting the new fuses in. So I went away, went to Washington for about a year and a half and came back, rejoined the guild back when we were still over on 67th Street. Then what, 15 years ago. And rejoined the guild. And then, of course, 3 months later, they tear the shop down. We move up here to where we are involved here. But, oh, go ahead.
No.
I just, I started just as a member and then became a sponsorship director and the president of the guild.
Your way up the chain. How did you become the guild's finishing guru?
Well, not my choice. Years ago, I got bored with woodworking. And I realized the reason I was bored with my woodworking is that it all looked the same. Danish oil can only go so far. And I know that a lot of people find their poison and they stick with it, and that's great. But I wanted things to look different. I wanted to be able to emulate arts and crafts finishes from the years over. And Gary Kepko, who works out at Woodcraft, he recommended a great book by Terry Masacci, Foolproof Wood Finishing, for those who love to build and hate to finish. And boy, did that describe me. I was not a fan of finishing, but I loved to build furniture. And after reading Terry's book, started trying the techniques and trying some more techniques. And ultimately started teaching the finishing class at Woodcraft. And doing is the best way to learn. Actually getting your hands dirty, getting everything lined out, trying all these different techniques. I think because I had the opportunity to do so many techniques on so many types of wood that I'm good at doing finishing. I'm not a perfect finisher. I'm not an expert in finishing, but I have tried a lot of things, so I'm not afraid to try stuff.
You did a video that made its rounds on YouTube. Very gorgeous.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Legacy.
We had a lot of fun with that. Eric Gorgeous lives up in Michigan, and Woodcraft store owner near him happens to own the Woodcraft here in Kansas City. And Eric would always go into that store, so owner Matthew, quite good friends with Eric. And when Woodcraft Corporate wanted to do some more videos with Eric involved with them, Matthew volunteered me to do this video with him. And so Eric came to Kansas City. We did probably 2 hours worth of video, which one copy of the whole 2 hours existing out there on YouTube somewhere. But then Woodcraft Corporate decided that so much good information in here, they broke it down into different videos. The one that I get the most response out of from people, lots of emails, was how to use a foam brush. People love that video, and I get responses probably every week about, this has been over a year now since I've been here. I still get responses, people like, that was the best information. And that's just what I learned from a great article in Fine Woodworking magazine about 3 years ago. So it really worked well.
Well, that fits right in with the Guild's policy of sharing the technique.
Oh yeah, Eric was great. He actually, after we filmed it at the store, Eric came down here and he was completely blown away. And I gave him a brochure, and he says, "You mean it's only $95 a month to belong here?" I said, "Oh no, it's $95 a year to belong here." And he just could not believe. He sees 5 saw stops sitting here. He sees 16-inch joiner, 20-inch planer, 4 mortising machines, the big sanders, 38-inch wide belt sander. He's just like, all this for $95 a year. Yeah. He says, "I'm moving." He was ready to move from Michigan to come down here.
Well, you've just covered some of the benefits of being a member, but what else do you see?
Well, the biggest thing that when we have new members, and I talk about to somebody potentially becoming a member, our biggest asset is all the other members. At any given time during an open shop, I can turn around and look at all the men and ladies that are working in here, and there's probably 300 or 400 years of wood experience. If I don't know the answer to something, perhaps he does, or perhaps she does. So we can draw that knowledge from so many different bases. Sometimes like, oh, that's maybe outside the realm of the person's ability. Well, this person over here has another idea for doing that. And so we can get 2 or 3 perspectives on how to do one thing. They're all right, they're all correct, but which one is going to fit abilities? And that's one of the great things that we have here, just the people that come down here and use.
What's been your favorite activity at the Guild since you've been a member?
Well, my favorite activity is being a shop foreman. I'm a shop foreman generally on Tuesdays. Get lots of new people coming in, and they come in with a plan. Got a plan, and I got my lumber. What do I do? And so it's fun to go step by step and watch this person develop. They've never used a jointer. They've never used. By the time they're done, they're no longer a beginning woodworker. They're an intermediate woodworker now. And it's fun to watch these people come in every Tuesday, and I get to mentor, coach them along through the process of building their project. And some of them aren't perfect. In fact, I've never seen even my own woodworking is never perfect, but I've seen some really great woodworking from a first-time woodworker. And it's because we have great machines here. We have great coaching through all the shop foremen and the other members. It's just really a great place to learn woodworking hands-on. I mean, sorry, there's no offense against YouTube. You can learn a lot from it, but until you can get your hands on something, it's a lot different story.
So what advice would you have for somebody who's on the fence about joining?
I recommend they come down and take a tour during open shop. They can actually see people working at the workbenches. They can see the machines running. They can see all the interaction among the membership. It really gets somebody charged up to say, golly, I've never done woodworking, or it's been years since I've done woodworking, high school since I've done it, and I'm getting ready to retire. I can come back down here and have equipment that I could never afford to have some of this equipment, or I don't have room for it. This is your workshop. And so that's one of the things is come down, just take a tour. We'll get you excited about woodworking. So it's, we're very proud. I'm very proud. I know Kevin is as well. We're very proud of our shop here. And we have, talent galore coming out down. We have many members that do this professionally, do it for a living, and we have brand new people that come in and they are successful.
So where do you see the Guild headed in the future?
Well,
what's your vision?
My vision, not shared by all, but I would like to see us be able to teach more, whether that be homeschool students, being able to bring homeschool students in for classes during the day, whether that's opening up, teaming up with school district, saying, I know you don't have saws and all that in your schools anymore. Let us be your teachers. I'd like to see us become the Midwest equivalent of the North Bennett Street School in Boston. I think we could develop a 2 or 3 year program in woodworking, send out woodworkers here into the Midwest, because you really have to go further east. I think Indiana is probably a really good school there. North Bennett Street, go to the opposite coast, College of the Redwoods, their program. Really high end, but there's really not that much here in Central Michigan offers that. I'd like to see the Guild be able to be that destination woodworking knowledge.
Okay, it's time for our final 3 questions.
Oh boy.
These are 3 random questions that may not pertain to woodworking. Are you ready?
Sure. These are not on this piece of paper, by the way.
Tails or pins first?
Oh, tails first. Without a doubt. Tails first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite Kansas City
Hi. Welcome back. back. Hope you enjoyed that fun podcast there. So I'm getting started, getting some stuff out. Alrighty. How many of you enjoy finishing? Oh, there's a few, yeah. You do now, right? You've taken my class, haven't you? Alrighty. Well, when Matthew asked if I would do this, because I think he was hurting for people to do a presentation, I said, yeah, I can do one on, how about layering color? He said, what's that? I said, great, you're going to be my audience. So a lot of the people who've taken my class will recognize some of this stuff, and they'll like, oh, we did that in class. Oh, we did that in class. Earlier, I think they were talking about the chatoyance on maple. We're actually going to start with a piece of curly maple here, and it has been dyed. I've dyed one part of it black and another part of it with dark vintage maple, which is a trans-tint dye that's available not only at Woodcraft but also at Rockler. See, I'm full service here. So trans-tint Rockler, yes. Who? But trans-tint is a dye concentrate, and if you do a lot of dyeing, it's a very economical way. You mix 1 ounce or half this bottle with 32 ounces of water. That's the ratio, and you get big bottles, big jars like this. And so on this particular board, we're going to pop the curl or increase the chatoyance of this curly maple. And so I started with the dye concentrate, dark vintage maple, and I mixed it up in 1 to 30, and I always mix with distilled water. If you have any iron content in your household water, woods that have a lot of tannins in them, like some of the oaks, will gray slightly, and it may throw your color off a little bit. And as that iron content changes in your household water, so will that coloring on your board. So that's why I always use distilled water when I mix up my dyes. When I mix up these liter jars, there's 32 ounces of water, 1 ounce of dye, stain, and a tablespoon of denatured alcohol. And that does help keep things wetter longer. The shelf life, once it's mixed, indefinite. Just keep the lid on. I used to use salsa jars. My wife and I like a particular brand of salsa. It has a nice big round lid on it, easy to get a brush in and all that. And I made the mistake one time of shaking it when there's a stripe. So I went to these jars. They have a rubber seal in them so that it doesn't. But if you keep it sealed, it'll always stay good. So it just doesn't evaporate away. So using the dye concentrate, in fact, I still need that, mixed up at ratio 1 to 32. That's what's on this side. The black is also 1 to 32. But the first thing I need to do is sand all this off. All right? And what that's going to do, if you know about curly wood, the curl is actually ingrain coming up to the surface. And the dye stains, due to the capillary action of the wood, will draw that dye deep inside. Where the wood in between, we're going to sand that off to clean wood. So I'm going to grab the machine here. I'm going to use 80 grit just to speed things up. But if I were doing this, I might start with 80 and then work my way down, or work it up to a little bit finer. Yeah, if you've got a question, we have some microphone monitors around here that will start. I don't know how loud this is going to be. So. safety violation there. Supposed to have been wearing these, so. I could go a little bit further than this. In fact, I should really go a little bit further than this, but in time's sake, I'm going to stop where I am. So on this, if you can zoom in on that, Mike. You can see how this curl over here, you can see the little lines going through there. That's the curl. And ideally, we'd like to have between those layers of curl, we'd like to have those back down to maple color to the wood. So now I'm going to take a little, huh?
If somebody in our audience isn't quite familiar, you might explain that Festool keeps the dust down.
Yeah, Festool keeps the dust down. So I'm going to mix up a wash coat of that same color using the original dye mix and 9 parts of water here. So 1 part of the original dye stain, put that on. That for those of you who have taken my finishing class, how many foam brushes did we go through? About 100. So yeah, I tell people in the class, I said, you know, if I get a hold of you, make sure that you invest in the foam brush company stock, because we will definitely. Now just with this little light bit of color on here, it's really going to start evening out that. And notice I'm not dilly-dallying when I'm putting this stuff on. So let that dry like that. And so when this dries, and particularly after you put a top coat on it, you'll be able to turn this board and you can see that rippling effect. That's the chatoyance, the reflection. Chatoyance is how velvet's graded. You take velvet, go one way and back the other, and you would see that. See that? Yeah, on there. Now for the black ones, what we're going to do is actually use some colors. Oh, and I have a trash can down here too. And so here's red, green, blue, and we've got a brown in here. You know, golden brown. And do the same thing on those black areas. Get rid of the barcodes. What's that? On the jars, I get them at the Container Store over there on 119th and Row. And when you put this blue on, you don't really see the black underneath it anymore. You see dark blue. No, these are my containers. And I tell her, oh, I need to go to Container Store. She, oh, more containers? She's probably watching. Hi, sweetie. Love you. She says, well, I just might watch tonight's meeting. So I'm not sure if she's watching it or not. You could, but I just so used to using these. The question was, could you use a cheaper rag to put this on? Sure, you could. But you know, usually if I'm doing something big, I'm using a bigger brush, bigger foam brush. So. And here's some red. No, I don't get a kickback. Really lay this color on. You can see how that's now not black under there, it's a really dark red there. And then the last one, often you'll see this in some shaker furnitures where they do this dyeing. They come back with just more of a brown color. Ends up looking something like that then. So just those
you know, those two colors, or in fact this case, just one color, but a diluted second coat, really gives you kind of that pop on there. Now when this dries, it will be kind of underwhelming. But when top coat goes on, that's when you really start to see the chatoyance on that. So that's one way to layer color for curly maple. Any questions on that? Here's a microphone right there in front of you. Am I going to cover it? I can cover the top coat. Well, the stuff with the dark vintage maple on it, I'd probably use an oil base. It gives a little bit more amber hue to it, like Armor Seal. But because I'd like the colors to be more true, I'd use a water base, because the water base would dry water clear and remain water clear through its life. And it won't alter the color. If you ever wonder why there's a big yellow stain in the entryway to the library, it's because one of these fell off a cart one day and exploded. And that dye stain just went frickin' everywhere. So, probably should tell you the differences on some of these stain products we're using. We're using dye stains, and we're also using pigment stains. Pigment stains have two coloring components. They have large pigments that lodge in the pores of the wood, and they also have dyes. And the pigments set on top of the wood, but the dyes are actually coloring the cells of the wood. So if you've ever stripped furniture, you'll remove the top coat with the chemical stripper, and also a lot of the pigment will come off. But very little of the dye will come out. You'll still have some of that residual color left from the dye stain. So when you're using a dye alone, you get a fairly even color across the wood. You don't get the pigments loading up in the early growth, particularly on some of these other woods. Oh, I've got it all over here now. Like here, this was two colors. Oh, that's still wet. Oh, it's because I didn't wipe it off. You can see here in the early growth, you can see in the early growth, the darker areas here, that's where a lot of the pigments have really lodged in there. That's what gives that tonality between the early growth and the late growth. So on this board, this is just red oak. Looks like that when it's... So I chose two different stains. Both of them are oil-based stains, and I'm going to protect those by putting a shellac wash coat on. So the important thing about the shellac is it's alcohol-based, but it has to be wax-free shellac. And Zinsner makes this product called Seal Coat, a universal sanding sealer. But the important thing is right down here at the bottom of the can, it says 100% wax-free shellac. Can't figure out where my fingers are on the TV screen. That's the important thing. Wax-free shellac sticks to anything, and anything sticks to it. If you use and I don't have a can of it, if you use the one that just says shellac on it, that contains the naturally occurring wax. And you put a water-based glaze on top of that, it'll just beat up like a freshly waxed car. This shellac is a finisher's friend. It will segregate incompatible layers. It'll keep from lifting color, and it dries in 15 minutes. And I've got a heat gun around here. We're going to make it dry even faster. So I use a Taclon bristle brush to put the shellac on with. Very, very fine filaments. In fact, Ron Lomax, this is a brush similar to what he had in his box class I took. If you ever have a chance, take Ron's precision box making class. But he had this, and we put the shellac on the inside of the boxes before we assembled the box. And I said, boy, that's kind of a neat brush. Where'd you get that? He said, oh, Cold Snows, or can't remember exactly where he said, but I went over to Cold Snows, and I said, I'm looking for a Taclon bristle brush. It's spelled T-A-K-L-O-N, Taclon. And
girl said, yeah, we got Taklon. She says, gold or white? Oh, white. Oh, yeah, right over here. So she takes it over here. And I said, yeah, just an inch. I'm just doing boxes right now. Okay. I said, well, I'll look around a little bit. And so she took this to the counter. And I said, well, I guess today all I need is the brush. And she says, okay, that'll be $67. I was like, holy crap. Well, come to find out, the white ones are what artists use. When they've got their palette, they can take some of this paint, some of this paint, and mix it together, and they can evaluate it on the brush before they put it on the canvas. So I'm cruising through Walmart one day in the art supply aisle, and I see out of the corner of my eye these brushes, Taklon, gold Taklon. In the bag were 2 of these 1 1/4 wide brushes for $6.99. And because I was teaching the class, we use a lot of shellac in the class, I bought all they had. And the old ones have the blue handle, the newer ones have a black handle on them, but they're still $6, $6.99, something like that for a pair of them. Shellac brushes, once you use them, this brush will only see shellac. Just let it dry hard. I don't know if I've got one out here, but it's kind of stiff. You can soak it in alcohol or soak it in some shellac, and the bristles will come right back. Then you never have to wash them. You just let them dry hard. So I'm going to do this to a couple of these boards here real quick. Put this shellac wash coat on. So this is the seal coat mixed 1-to-1 with alcohol. In this can is a 2-pound cut of shellac. We're going to make it a 1-pound cut by diluting this 1 part shellac out of the can with 1 part alcohol. And that gives us a very alcohol-rich shellac that will dry very quickly. And notice I'm not dilly-dallying here. I'm just putting it on. You're not Rembrandt. You're not Picasso. The goal is just to get it on the wood and bring the brush up real high, and I can tip it off. And as long as I don't overwork it, I won't have any brush marks in it. We're done there. All right. So I've put the shellac wash coat on these boards here. So as a test board, that's where I started, and I can just go through with the rest of the steps. So this was the one that always freaks out the class when I do the walnut. This was dyed with lemon yellow Transdent dye. The master mix 1 ounce to 32. And we put this on. See, you can see it kind of darken that up a little bit. Once that shellac dries though, it will get yellow again. This one. Here's some poplar. Sometimes poplar is a little harder to stain, any of the closed poured woods, because it might have a tendency to blotch. And so I always start with a wash coat of shellac on the bare poplar. And that seals the capillary action of the wood. So when you have rising grain, the dye and the pigments are not going to be sucked down inside. You end up with this blotchy look on your board. So I just start with a wash coat of shellac, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, that's dry, ready to go on to the next step. So, and let's see, I got another one right over here. I want to do that too. So this is, for a lot of you know that I like to build arts and crafts style furniture. This is what we do in the class to recreate some of the stickly finishes. If you've ever gone out to Traditions Furniture, downtown Overland Park, the old Strangline car barn, they sell stickly out there. And you can look at the furniture and it'll say, oh, that's the Onondaga finish. Oh, that's the Centennial finish. Well, you can recreate those pretty easily. Jeff Jewett, who makes Transdent dyes, he's got all the formulas on his website on how to recreate all of those stickly finishes. And so this is just quarter sawn white oak, and we've dyed it. And the reason why we dye the oak first, the quarter sawn white oak, is that medullary ray is very dense. It does not take pigments at all. It will be dyed nicely, but it won't do pigments. And so we're gonna put some shellac on these to protect the dye. That's the purpose of this coat of shellac here. And I don't know if you can see, figure out what I'm moving here. You can see how that medullary ray, those little stripes going across the wood, that's what we're dyeing for. So that'll be dry here in just a little bit. And I actually did a great big board here so that we could really see what it looks like. So, because we're going to layer another color on top of this. Oop, that's water. It's like shellac. Yeah, I'm not wasting a lot of time getting this on here. Yeah, there we go. All right, so we're going to let those dry for a little bit. We're going to talk about some other things. I've got the water up here to put oil-based rags in. So just remember, if you're ever using anything that's oil-based, it doesn't go in your trash can. It goes either in water or lay them out flat. I hang them over the neighbor's fence, let them dry. So, all right. One of the things that we do in class, you have a question? Oh, I'm sorry. All right. One of the things we do in class is we take some cherry, and it's kind of a pretty color on there, isn't it? All right. That's actually achieved with lye. What's that? Yeah, this is a fun one, isn't it? So, all right, so this is just powdered lye. All right, 8 ounces of distilled water, a teaspoon, yes, a teaspoon of lye into that. Mix it up, and you should end up with a very clear looking liquid. This is dangerous stuff. So for me to use this, I'm going to put my goggles on, I'm going to put gloves on. All right, let me grab my goggles here and my gloves here, and I've got another piece of cherry right over here. And Mike, I'm going to ask if you could, when I get this on here, if you will zoom in. This does not take long at all for this reaction. For some reason, cherry reacts with lye very quickly. And so this was put on yesterday, about this, maybe a little earlier in the day. So that's what it looks like. So that's just completely dried. All right. So let me back off here a little bit. So and you can't use a foam brush with this stuff, otherwise you'll be pulling out a stick. The foam will just disappear. So when I go across this, you'll see that that chemical reaction starts pretty darn quick. You can see how that's darkening even as we speak here. So I've let this piece here set overnight, and you end up with something that looks like that. And see, it's darkening even more. Now, if you have sapwood in your cherry, that chemical reaction won't happen. It only affects the heartwood. So, this is an old time finish. Lye on cherry makes it darker. I'm going to put the lid on this. Let me get this out of the way here real quick. Right. Pitch it. Pitch it. It's done. I left the brush in there on the last class. I accidentally left it in from Tuesday to Wednesday, and I came back in, and I picked the brush up, and all the bristles just went. like this. They're just done. All right.
You'll need to repeat your question, but if you wanted to have that color spread out a lot, can you put a top coat on that?
Yes, you will. Yeah. Yeah. So Mike asked if I wanted this just like it is, could I put a top coat on this? The answer is yes, you could. You can put an oil-based or a water-based top coat on it. Do a test to make sure that your ambering oil-based top coat won't recolor this something different. All right. Water-based top coat would be good on there. Not as durable, but it would be good on there. All right. So now we're going to use a glaze. And a glaze, and I teach this in the class, a glaze can be either a product called glaze effect, I've got some cans over there, or it can be a technique, application technique. And whenever you seal wood and you put color on it, you're technically glazing. Okay? I have a really old finishing book at home that starts out with gather up a bushel of walnut from your yard, crack the hulls off of it, soak it in alcohol for so many days, strain that, add Japan dryer, add some mineral spirits, and so you're making a stain. And you stain the wood, you wipe off the excess, and ooh, look, pretty. Then about 3 chapters later, they talk about glazing. That same stain you made in chapter 1, you're now going to put a shellacked wash coat on your board, and you're going to put the stain on top of that. And you're using it as a glaze. So the difference between those was they sealed the board, and it's a glaze. Now when I sell furniture, I'm like, well, I'll finish this with this stain, and then I will glaze it. Ooh, he's going to glaze it. Well, I can ask for more money. All right. So I'm going to use 4 ounces, maybe 4 ounces, 4 ounces of mineral spirits. And to that, I should have my goggles on for this. I'm going to add a teaspoon of asphaltum, roof tar. When you buy your roof tar or your asphaltum, the only 2 ingredients in it should be asphaltum and mineral spirits. If it's got fibers or anything like that in it, you cannot use it for this. It's got to be just asphaltum. So to my 4 ounces, I'm going to add a teaspoon of this asphaltum. Plenty of stir sticks here. Mix that up. And so we actually have this really black looking liquid here. And it doesn't take long for that mineral spirits to break down that asphaltum. You shouldn't have anything floating around in it. Yeah, well, roof tar. Yeah, it took me a long time to find it. Finally found it at like a Westlake's, and had to buy a gallon of it. And so I decanted off. So this is probably about 2/3 full. Plus I've got the rest of the gallon at home. So if you want any asphaltum, bring me a jar and I'll pour you off some. I've got plenty. I've got a lifetime supply for many, many people. Here. Well, it's just roof tar. Yeah, using it like that would be. Now, you can get another bristle brush here. Yeah, this is a very old finish. I mean, it's been around for hundreds of years using lye. There's a book called The Furniture Bible by Christophe Purny. He's from France. And you can see that. Let me tilt it the other way. So you can see how that blackness goes on there. I think it was John Johnson, who said he had a cherry something. He was trying to get a nice, rich, deep cherry color out of it. Let's see. That darkness on those two panels down here will get a little bit lighter. It'll dry up as it gets dry. But John Johnson, he loved that. He came back the next day after we put the asphaltum on. He says, "Oh, I'm going to go home and refinish all my furniture to this." So then after this dries, then I can go ahead and put a top coat on top of that. And it just, this was something they may have done 200 years ago, the same technique for that. And we do waste a lot of stuff in the class too. All right. Now, in all that intervening time, these have all dried from that shellac. So, if you have a question, you have a microphone.
You originally reduced the seal coat 1-to-1, and then you use straight on a couple of the others. When do you use one, when the other?
Well, all of this it says on the top of the can here, shellac wash coat. I've already pre-mixed this, so yeah. That way, because if I'm doing it out of this or a little cup, I've got some left over, I have no problem pouring it back in then. That's what I'll do with this stuff, is I'll just pour it back into this can. That way, and it'll stay good for about 6 months to a year. So I don't worry too much about it. You can tell if your shellac is bad. If you're worried about it, just take your brush and paint some on a window pane, a piece of glass in your shop. Come back in about 15 or 20 minutes. If it's gummy, it's no good. Toss it out. But if it takes a razor blade to scrape it off, it's still good. So that's just a down and dirty, easy way to know if it's still going to work for you. Okay, so we've got these two boards here, and we put the shellac wash coat on these panels. We're going to actually then start with another glaze. Here. And so I've got these products here are actually called glaze effects. They're very heavily pigmented, kind of thick glaze. And you brush it on just like you would a stain. You let it set for a period of time, just like you would a stain, and then you wipe it off, just like you would a stain. So it's just another way to add color. And because we put that shellac on there, the simple abrading action of a brush going across the wood is enough that the new liquid could lift the color that's already there. But with the shellac in the way, we're not going to have that lifting of color. Okay? Put that away. So again with the foam brush, and just give this a quick little stir in here. So this particular color is burnt umber. It's kind of a medium dark brown, not real dark, but not real light either. And just layer that on. Go across there like that. And the goal is just to get it on the wood. Right. Now for this other one, I've got Van Dyke Brown. And this is a much darker brown color. Almost looks black, but it's a really dark brown. And so I should have been timing that. But on water-based products, they tend to set up a little bit faster than oil-based. The more you overwork it, like I'm doing right here, overworking it, the vehicle, which in this case is water, evaporates away, and it makes it harder to get those stains off of there, or those glazes. All right. So
I didn't, I used to do a thing in the class where everybody had their own red oak board, and we'd put stain on 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And I would do the same thing. And 6 people in the class, all 6 boards look different because we all put stain on differently. We all take stain off differently. A lot of people, when they just grab a rag and start wiping. All right, well, who knows how much you're redepositing back on there. I learned to always present a clean portion of the rag to the wood when I'm wiping off stains. So Bounty paper towels are great for the Selecticize for taking stains off and glazes. So there's a gatefold, a double gatefold, and I'm going to fold it again like so, and fold it in half. So every time I wipe, I'm going to present a new clean portion of this cloth to the stain. If I miss an area, I go find another new clean spot, and I kind of buff that area. Like shining shoes, you just kind of buff and blend that missed area into the surrounding wood. And to test this, I'm just going to take my rag and go down. See, there's not a lot of color difference between this part and the part up above. So I'm going to leave it set there for a little bit longer. Now the darker color may set up a little bit faster. So you can see there that it's a little bit darker down here than it is up here. So I'm going to leave that sit for a little bit. Come back and wipe it off here in a second. Now remember our lye. You can see some of the areas in here. That's lightening up a little bit. That's the fresh lye we just put on. Now we'll go to our walnut board. This is about as fast paced as the class is, isn't it? we're moving through stuff in a hurry. All right. Now this one I need different stain, different glazes here. You can actually use a pigment stain as a glaze. Remember, we've sealed this wood with the shellac, so I can use really anything I want. In this case, I'm going to use Georgian Cherry, which is a gel stain, an oil-based gel stain. And gel stains are heavy-bodied, and so they're very reminiscent of the thickness, viscosity of a glaze effect. And gel stains really don't need to be stirred a lot. If you over-stir them, they will liquefy, and they're kind of hard to get back into the gel state. Because they're oil-based, they also take a lot longer to set up. The vehicle, mineral spirits or any of the oil, takes a long time for it to evaporate off. So I'm going to wait a little bit longer before I wipe off this excess on here. And as I'm dragging this on here, I'm feeling raised grain. And so I probably should tell you my process when I start doing this kind of stuff. If I'm doing this kind of work here, where I'm not going to be sanding the stain like we did on that maple board over there, my first process is to sand to the appropriate grit, like 150, 180, 220, somewhere in there. Take alcohol and wipe over the entire board. And with a raking light or a flashlight, I can see any flaws in the wood, see any tear out. That's why I notice there's some tear out down here on the bottom of this board. There's a couple of boards here that have some really good size chunks taken out of it. But that's when I can go ahead and fix that. Once that's all fixed, I wipe the board down with water. Just take a sponge, damp sponge, wipe the board down, and that will raise the grain. And you'll feel that roughness after it dries. By hand, you have to sand that raised grain off, that fuzz off of there. And you sand until that fuzz is gone. Once that fuzz is gone, stop sanding that area. And I use the big prepping weapons. I don't know if I've got mine out here, because you can cover a lot of real estate turning those sideways, and you've got nearly 9 inches, 8.5 inches that you can travel on there. But
Well, that's a good question. Gel stains, they'll say right on the can, sand no finer than 150 grit. So that's going to be the grit. Where the liquid stains, they'll say sand no finer than 220. So that's going to be the grit that I'm going to sand by hand. If you sand these real heavy bodied pigmented stains too fine, excuse me, the wood gets too flat and there's no place for the pigments to lodge. This is when I want bourbon in here. And so it's important not to sand too fine, because we have a lot of people come in the store. My stain doesn't look anything like the sample. Okay, how'd you prep your wood? Well, I sanded to 400. Ooh, okay, well, there's your problem. That's why it's too light, because when they wiped it off, they're wiping off nearly all the pigments. Really, the only thing left behind is the dyes. It's coloring the cells of the wood. Question?
I found using a well-tuned scraper cart
Card scrapers work great.
will actually sever those fibers between your coats. Just some
Most, I'll put it, the experience I have with most people, my customers at the store, is that they're over aggressive. Yes, you have to be very gentle when you're doing it that way. That's why for most of my customers, I just recommend them use sandpaper to knock off the raised grain. There we go. All right. Now let's see how this is setting up here. Oh yeah, much better. So I warn people in class that when you take the stain off, you don't want to grind it off. You want to leave some of it behind. And see, I've kind of missed a little bit of an area in here. So I'm going to find a new clean portion of my rag, and I'm just going to kind of buff that to blend it in. So it looks like that. And since these are oil-based, they go into the water. See, when I change to a new clean portion, I'm always taking off a pretty even amount. I had a lady come in the store. It went from light to dark across her tabletop. And I said, well, how often did you change your rag? What? Change my rag? Because she was probably putting on more stain than she was taking off by the time she got across to the other side. But here you can see that this glaze really accentuated the early growth in there. Okay? But we're not done with this board yet. There's more. Okay, so now let's come over here to our walnut. And I normally have a bunch of these. That's what one of these little containers, I've got a little divider up here, is just full of these little towels already folded up, ready to go. Okay, this is walnut. It has trans-tint lemon yellow dye on the whole thing. And then it's got Georgian cherry gel stain used as a glaze on top of that. And I've got a little heavy in there, so let's find another clean spot here and kind of even that color out a little bit on there like that. So that gives a little bit of richness to that on there. Okay. So, yeah, I know this is going to sound bad, and you might want to step back when lightning strikes, but I think American walnut's kind of an ugly wood sometimes. So, yeah, and yeah,
Gary, he paints his stuff black, Java gel stain. Leaves it on there for 4 hours and then wipes it off. He gets a really dense wood on there.
Craig, again, answered the question, but how do you know if you left it on too long?
How do I know if I've left the stain on too long? It'll be hard to take off. It'll just be blotchy and glocky on there. It just won't come off very well.
How do you solve that?
You can solve that. Often I'll have a little Scotch-Brite pad up here, and I can take, if it's an oil-based product, I can take some mineral spirits, just lightly dampen that Scotch-Brite pad and kind of buff, and that will remove, and then use another rag to kind of blend. You know, if you get drawn away, you know, the kids are screaming bloody murder, I'm bleeding, and you have to leave your work, well, yeah, that might be a problem. If it's water-based, just get a little water and go across it. Now, if you've left it for 2 or 3 days, that's not going to work. If you've left it too long, for a few minutes to a couple hours, you can rejuvenate that by putting vehicle, water-based or oil-based, mineral spirits or water, and just kind of lightly buff it, and you'll take off a lot of that. You can reblend it, wipe it down, and get pretty close to the original color you're shooting for. Question back here?
I've never done your process working with gels. Just re-add a gel back to it.
Yeah.
And it rejuvenates.
Yeah, gel stains, and that's the one thing about gel stains is if you put a second coat of gel stain on too soon after the first coat, it will lift all of that first coat off of there. It'll virtually look like bare wood. And we have customers at the store want to redo their kitchen cabinets, and oh, it's been an hour, it should be dry, and they put on new gel stain and they wipe it off, and they're wiping right back down to bare wood again. And they're like, what happened? You didn't wait. Stuff's got to dry. So on gel stains, I always recommend 24 hours between first coat and second coat, and 72 hours between second coat and a third coat if you need it. Because the vehicle will reactivate those first layers and just peel it right off. There. Okay. So I'm going to do, real quick, I want to do these for you. So I've got the Georgian cherry, and we're going to put that on the brown mahogany. And then I've got candlelight. The candlelight? Yeah, it's a nice color. Put that on top of this medium brown dye stain. And then the last one is Java gel stain. This is a really darker than mocha pigment stain. Gary Melky's favorite color. I think this can, it's kind of gloppy in there like that. I think this can got frozen. And if you ever run across a can like that, by all means bring it back to the store and we'll give you a new can, because it should not be that way. The water-based stuff is more susceptible to freezing. It'll look like, the top coat will look like cottage cheese inside the can. In fact, General Finishes won't even ship direct anymore any water-based products in the wintertime, because they're up in Minnesota and it can be, you know, a truck sitting out overnight, it can just freeze solid inside a truck. Alrighty. So this one, because it's so dark, right across that, we're going to wipe this off here pretty quick.
tell the people in the class, don't try to conserve paper towels. Always use a clean paper towel for each stain color, because you certainly don't want to contaminate it. There you can see, I mean, I left that on, what, 30 seconds? You can see how dark that got over here on this panel right here. But you can still see the medullary ray is nice and bright underneath it. If I didn't use the dye stain first, that medullary ray would just virtually disappear. But because I've got that dye stain on there, that medullary ray is popping out through there. So layering these colors like that gets you those different effects. Now, let's wipe off the other ones here. And, you know, when you're doing your test boards, because like when I build a piece of furniture, you know, the best pieces of wood become the top. The next best pieces of wood become the fronts, the drawer fronts, the door fronts. The other stuff becomes the sides, and then you have some offcuts. That makes a great test board. But you treat it just like you do the rest. You sand it, you scrape it, you do all your techniques to it, so that when I come to my finishing part, I have properly prepared wood to do my finishing on. And you know, I'm married to my design consultant, and she tells me, "Oh, that's what I like. Ooh, can you do that? Ooh, that looks nice." And so I always show her a sample board, and she'll say, "Oh yeah, I like that." I said, "Okay, sign the back." Hi, sweetie. Okay, so this kind of sat on here a little bit longer, but ends up being a little bit brighter color down here. And again, you can see that color in the ray coming off of that board. That dye stain is peeking through. And so that's, you know, why I like, particularly on this walnut one, you know, because people buy finish. You know, they may not know what a mortise and tenon is or a dovetail, but, you know, you go out to Nebraska Furniture Mart, you'll see them, ooh, feel this, ooh, look at that. They're buying finish. You know, it could be plywood or particle board with paper on top of it that's got a nice finish on it, but they don't care anything about the construction. But ooh, look at this, ooh, feel that. That's what they're buying. And so for the people that don't spend a lot of time on their finishing, or, you know, name their poison and stick with it, boiled linseed oil, that's what I use. There. Now, I'm going to pass this board around. You can hold it by the unstained areas, but you can see the medullary ray color poking through that gel stain that I used as a glaze. What's that? Quarter sawn white oak. What? Quarter sawn oak. And that's, the quarter sawing is really what shows off that medullary ray. And that's a line that comes from the pith out to the bark. All right. Now, get back over here to our walnut board. This might be a little wet yet. So now I am going to, where is it? There it is. I'm going to put some top coat on this, just so you can see what it looks like when it's top coated. And my grandfather was a furniture maker, and I used to be his apprentice on some weekends during the month. And I started with him when I was about 5 years old, learning to sharpen chisels and plane irons, and then eventually, you know, I was making my own furniture with him. And he passed away when I was in college. And everything we did at home was with hand tools. We didn't have power tools. And I bought my first table saw when I was 16. And he says, "You mean they let the public buy these things?" So he was a hoot. But he used to have to make his own varnishes. Pine resin, Japan dryer, mineral spirits, all that kind of stuff, mix it up. And he claimed not to be a very good brusher. And he says, well, the way that I learned, because his father before him and grandfather, in fact, there's a furniture factory in Sicily where he's from, that my grandparents family was a third owner in it. This is how they did their oil-based finishes over there. Okay, so you see how I put that oil-based finish on there, how it really brightened that up from up here. So I'm going to put that oil base on. I'm going to let it set for a little bit. I've got to have a dry hand for this. And my grandpa said it has to pass the crinkle test. What's the crinkle test, Craig? Well, I'll tell you. So, here it's been about, 30 seconds or so. I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to touch it. And my fingerprint will fill in. It's not time yet. I'm going to wait a little bit longer. A couple minutes. And you're going to touch it. And your fingerprint will fill in. Wait another 30 seconds or so. And touch it, and the fingerprint remains crinkly. It's passed the crinkle test. That's what I'm just going to take the Bounty paper towel and gently, yes, gently, wipe off the excess. My stain's still way too wet here. But that way, boys, even see it took most of the stain away. But that way, if I've got a drip, a run, a puddle, a smudge, no problem. I'm going to be wiping that gently off. So there. Armor Seal here from General Finishes. It's their oil-based urethane. It was 2 or 3 years ago. It was chosen by Fine Woodworking Magazine as the best brushing varnish and the best wiping varnish. And so this technique combines both. I'm going to brush it on. I'm going to wait until it loses some of its vehicle before I gently wipe off any excess. So if I've got to run over a tabletop, no problem. I'll be wiping that right off. All right? John's over there nodding his head like, man, that's cool. So how many did you used that technique on your table, didn't you? Yeah. Okay. And that finish was flawless. I mean, it looked great. So, all right. Now, so here is the board that had the asphaltum on it. If Mike can zoom in on that. And now you can see how deep, rich. That looks like it's 50 or 60-year-old cherry now. That deep, rich color to it. And we did that in what, half an hour? So, and then look at this. Yes. Put any top coat you want to on top of that. So, then remember these boards, these colors. See if we can get the upstairs. There we go. So you can see the chatoyance in that. You can see it kind of flip back and forth. See the dark areas become light, the light areas become dark. And I'll pass this around to you as well because it's dry enough to handle. And just take the board and do this to it, and you can watch those just flip around on there. All right. So the last one I was going to do was to put a black glaze on here. I don't have any black glaze with me. So we're going to turn back to our friend asphaltum. And we're going to put some of that on. Because if you really want to push color back, a black glaze will do it really quickly. You have to keep track of what's so oil-based products, they generate heat when they cure, and so, you know, spontaneous combustion is a concern. You don't want to come back to your house as a smoldering ruin. Or I tell people here, I'd like to come back to the shop in one piece. See, just gently wiping off some of that black asphaltum. It really richens that color up a little bit down there on the bottom. See that? This one's got a really wet edge. I didn't wipe the stain off of this yesterday, and it's still wet on the side. So I've passed this around, but if you want to. Right, this would be the asphaltum. No, asphaltum over here. Yeah, my right, your left. Yeah. So hold it like you're carrying a drink tray.
It's a pizza.
Yeah, it's a pizza. All right. So that's a few ways to layer color. I've got a couple other boards, but I know we're running kind of late on time, so I won't go into those. I'll save those for class. Yeah. You have any questions? I cover a lot. You're going like, oh my God, my head is spinning. That's how the class is, isn't it? Tim, you remember that, don't you?
Still spinning.
It's still spinning.
Are you saying that you put a brush in shellac, take it out, do your thing, then let it dry?
Just let it dry hard.
And then dry hard.
Yeah.
Put it back in the shellac.
Put it back in the shellac, or I actually put it in alcohol. In the class,
Put it in alcohol, soap
Yeah.
and alcohol. Next day
Yeah.
use it.
no, you don't even have to do. Just let it dry hard. Put it 5 minutes before you need to use it. You can drop it into container shellac or alcohol. Yeah. You know, shellac brushes, don't worry, don't waste your time, or alcohol cleaning it. Just let them dry hard. Now, don't hand it to people, because the first thing they want to do is snap the bristles right off. I've seen that happen before. So see, this one's already stiff here. No big deal. I just,
Something like $20 pretty brush.
as long as you're using it for shellac only, that's the only thing. And I just know that all of these brushes are only seeing shellac. I have other brushes, water base. You know, I've written it right on there. You know, I've got some that have little flags on them. Say oil base. That's the only thing that brush sees is oil base. And then, pardon me. Any other questions? Head still spinning? How's the visitors doing? Good? We've got thumbs up from those guys. Great. Feel like you learned something tonight? Want to join? Yep. Great. Oh!
If somebody wants to learn more, how could they learn more?
Well, they can join the guild, and I need to come out here, don't I, for this. Let me get my mask. This is the one I dropped earlier.
So in case you didn't know, Craig, we have a tradition around here that you get a mug for presenting.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
I now have 4 of these. Three or four. I can't remember. Yeah, I think
One
it's
for each hand, right?
Yeah, one for each hand and one to spit in. All right. Thank you, Tim. I'm here on Tuesdays as a shop foreman. I'm also at Woodcraft, 87th and I-35. On Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. So if you have any questions, just come in. We've got all this stuff. There's a few cans that we can play with if you want to try something out. A lot of cans aren't open, but you know, I can usually find something that's open if you want to try something. The stuff that has to dry overnight, those are hard tests to do because we don't have a heat gun out there to force things to dry in a hurry. So yeah, but come on out. What's that? Yeah, it's a great class. If you're a Woodworker Plus, it's what, 120 bucks? Yeah, to take the class. It's 3 days of finishing fun. Here, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night from 6:30 to 10ish. So, and there's one coming up, but it's already full. So, all right. So, thank you all. Have a safe drive home. And oh yeah, chairs. If there's should be a chair rack somewhere. You can put your chairs away. We'd appreciate it. So.